My sister-in-law scheduled her wedding on my kid's birthday. My husband missed the party, called me dramatic, so I showed him what real drama looks like. Before any of this, our little family ran on small rituals. Saturday pancakes with too much syrup, a backyard soccer game that always ended with grass stains, and my son insisting he'd scored 1,000. Birthdays were sacred. Nothing fancy, just cousins, a lopsided cake, and the one rule my husband and I promised each other before we even had a kid: we show up for him, no matter what. My husband, Evan, has always been close to his sister, Brianna. I didn't mind it. Siblings have a language spouses never fully speak. What bothered me wasn't the closeness. It was the gravity she had over him. If Brianna sighed, he brought a fan. If she blinked, he fetched a towel. It was almost funny until it wasn't. There were little moments that should have registered as warnings. The time she forgot to invite me to a dress fitting I'd been asked to plan, the group text where I was mysteriously left. When she announced her engagement, I was genuinely happy. I helped pick linen samples. I sent links to DJs and argued for a cheaper venue because the numbers were ballooning. Somewhere in those spreadsheets, she slid in a casual comment: "We're thinking mid-May." My son's birthday is mid-May. I said it once lightly. She said they'd figure it out. We didn't talk about dates again for a while. Life was normal. I packed lunches. Evan worked late. Our kid practiced spelling words at the kitchen island while I stirred pasta. At night, when the house finally cooled, we'd sit on the back steps and trade small stories, the kind that make up a marriage. I felt secure in that quiet rhythm, like we had a home base no one could move. The save the dates arrived in a cream envelope with gold foil. I almost missed the date because the font tried so hard to be elegant it forgot to be readable. There it was, the exact day our kid would turn 7. My breath didn't catch, it hardened. I sent Evan a photo and a single line: "This is his birthday." He replied, "We'll make both work." The words didn't land. Both? There is no both when a child waits at a window counting cars. I told myself not to spiral. People get busy, calendars collide. But that night, while washing strawberries for school snack duty, I realized something sticky had spread between me and my husband. The assumption that I would bend. I always did. Move meetings, shift pickup, stay awake to frost cupcakes. Evan told me he'd talked to Brianna. He said it kindly, like a promise. He kissed my temple and said, "We'll figure it out." I nodded into the steam from the dishwasher and thought, I hope you mean we. I had no idea what was coming. The text thread should have been nothing, just logistics. Brianna asked if Evan could help with seating charts. He answered before I could even glance over his shoulder. "Of course, anything you need." That anything landed like a stone in my stomach. Later that night, over leftover pizza, I asked him, "Did you even notice what day she picked?" He chewed, shrugged, and said, "Yeah, I saw. It's fine. He's a kid. He'll have other birthdays." It took me a second to register. Other birthdays? As if this one was disposable. As if a 7-year-old's face lighting up over candles could be rescheduled like a dentist appointment. I pushed the plate away. "We promised," I said. My voice didn't rise, it lowered. "You promised me, before he was even born, birthdays matter. Showing up matters." Evan sighed, the way people do when they're already building a defense. "It's my sister's wedding. It's once in a lifetime. And our son's 7th birthday is once in a lifetime, too." I shot back. That was when he leaned back, crossed his arms, and said it. "You're making drama where there isn't any." I stared at him, and something small inside me shifted. It wasn't fury, it was colder, more precise. Like a dial clicking from hurt to noted. The next morning, I tried to reset. I bought balloons, streamers, the same dinosaur-themed napkins my kid had circled in the party catalog. I placed the box on the table so Evan would see it when he grabbed his coffee. He barely glanced before muttering, "We'll figure it out later." "Later?" I asked. "The wedding is 3 towns over. How do you picture this working? Drive back and forth while guests eat cake without you?" He didn't answer. He just kissed my cheek and left, smelling of aftershave and avoidance. That night, Brianna called. I didn't even get a hello before she said, "So Evan told me you're upset." Listen, I can't move the wedding. Venues book out years in advance. And honestly, birthdays happen every year. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted iron. She continued, breezy as ever. "Besides, wouldn't it be cute? He can blow out candles at the reception." I hung up before I could spit the words bubbling on my tongue. I walked into my son's room. He was asleep, one arm slung over a stuffed tiger, his mouth open in the kind of trust only children carry. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to his small breaths, and thought, how do I explain to him that his father chose sequins and speeches over cake and balloons? The answer was, I couldn't. Not yet. Downstairs, I opened the cream and gold wedding invitation again. My name wasn't on the envelope. It just said Evan and family. Family. That word tasted like chalk. I closed the envelope and placed it on the counter next to the dinosaur napkins. 2 dates. 1 choice. But that was just the beginning. The days leading up to both events turned into a split screen. Balloons and frosting on one side, flower arrangements and fittings on the other. Guess which one Evan picked every single time. I'd ask him to swing by Party City for streamers. He'd text back, Bree needs me to pick up her shoes. I'd ask if he could blow up the inflatable T-Rex. He'd answer, Bree's cake tasting is today. She doesn't want to go alone. Our son noticed. Kids always notice. He asked, why is Daddy always with Aunt Bree? I smoothed his hair and said something weak, like, he's helping her get ready. But inside, my jaw locked so hard I felt it in my temples. One night, while Evan was out, going over the rehearsal dinner seating, I opened the family group chat. Pictures popped up, Bree in a white dress, twirling in front of a mirror. Evan was tagged in the caption, couldn't have done this without my brother. Hearts and clapping emojis followed from relatives. Not a single mention that it was also the week of our kid's birthday. No balloons, no dinosaurs, no nothing. Just sequins and champagne emojis. I tried to breathe, to tell myself I was overreacting. But then I scrolled further. My stomach dropped when I saw a comment from Bree herself. Hopefully Evan's little one won't be jealous. It's not like anyone remembers their 7th birthday anyway. She added a winking emoji. I sat there frozen, staring at those words until the letters blurred. A joke, maybe, but it read like strategy. A way to frame me as irrational before I even opened my mouth. When Evan came home, smelling faintly of champagne, I confronted him. Did you see what your sister wrote? He blinked, unbothered. She was kidding. Don't twist it. I held up the phone. She said our son's birthday doesn't matter. He shrugged. You're reading too much into it. And then the kicker, you're being dramatic again. My hands shook so badly, I almost dropped the phone. I wanted to scream, to shake him until the spell broke. But instead I set the phone down carefully, like it was fragile glass, and said, you don't get to gaslight me in my own kitchen. He scoffed, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and muttered, God, you sound like one of those Reddit wives. I leaned against the counter, staring at the dinosaur napkins still sitting there, unopened. My son's party was shaping up to be me, a cake, and a handful of kids, while Evan paraded around in a tux, as if fatherhood were optional. That night, lying in bed, I realized it wasn't just about a date. It was about priorities. And my son wasn't even in the top 3 on his father's list. I turned off the lamp, my throat tight. The house felt colder than it should. Then I rolled over and thought, if I'm the dramatic one, maybe it's time to give them a performance they'll never forget. The confirmation didn't come as a whisper. It came blunt, in plain English, over a half-eaten plate of pasta. I'd asked him, again, if he was planning to split the day, even for an hour. Maybe show up at the birthday in the morning, then slip to the wedding in the afternoon. Our son would be thrilled to have even a slice of his dad's time. Evan set his fork down, wiped his mouth, and said, I'll be at the wedding. Not the birthday. He'll survive. The words landed with the kind of finality that doesn't invite negotiation. I stared at him. My body reacted before my brain did. Heat flushed my face, my chest tightened, and my hands trembled against the table. The pasta cooled in front of me, but my stomach turned so violently I couldn't swallow. He'll survive. My voice cracked. Not loud, but sharp, like glass breaking in the dark. Evan didn't flinch. He just kept eating, as if he hadn't gutted both me and our kid with one sentence. You promised, I whispered, leaning forward. We promised each other we'd show up for him. That was the one line we swore never to cross. Evan sighed, annoyed, like I was a buzzing fly he couldn't swat. It's my sister's wedding. You don't understand family obligation. Something inside me snapped. Family obligation? I nearly choked on the words. He is your family, your first obligation. Or did you forget how that works? He rolled his eyes, pushed his chair back, and muttered, You're exhausting when you get like this. Exhausting. as though asking a father to show up for his son's 7th birthday was equivalent to nagging about laundry. I went silent, because I realized silence was sharper than shouting. The next day, our son tugged on my sleeve while we were frosting trial cupcakes. His little fingers were covered in sprinkles, his face serious in a way that didn't belong on a child. "Mom," he asked quietly, "is Daddy going to come to my party?" My throat closed. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect him from the truth that should never fall on a 7-year-old's shoulders. But kids can smell dishonesty. So I said nothing. I kissed the top of his head, wiped the sugar from his cheek, and carried the weight of his question like a stone in my chest. That night, I overheard Evan on the phone with Brianna. I wasn't eavesdropping. His voice carried through the thin walls. "Don't worry," he said, chuckling. "I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world. She'll get over it. She'll get over it." I sat on the floor of the hallway, my back against the wall, listening to him laugh. Each laugh felt like a nail hammered into the coffin of our marriage. I wanted to storm in, to scream, to yank the phone from his hand. Instead, I pressed my palm against the hardwood until my nails left half-moons in my skin. I stayed quiet, because quiet was the only weapon left in that moment. When he hung up, he walked past me without noticing the wet streaks on my face. He smelled of soap and detachment. Later, lying in bed beside him, I couldn't sleep. My body shook with an ache I couldn't contain. My hands kept trembling, as if trying to release the betrayal my heart refused to process. I turned to face the wall, away from him, and whispered to myself, "He chose her. He abandoned us." It wasn't exaggeration. It wasn't drama. It was confirmation, clear, undeniable, and final. The betrayal didn't hollow me out. It sharpened me. My anger cooled into something steadier, more dangerous, resolve. And as I stared into the dark, one thought kept repeating like a drumbeat in my skull. They think I'm dramatic? They have no idea what kind of show I can put on. I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover. It started small, side comments that didn't add up. I noticed Evan's mother stopped calling me directly. Instead, she'd send messages through him, little digs wrapped in concern. Tell her not to stress over parties. Weddings are more important anyway. I brushed it off at first. Families talk. They meddle. But then I stumbled onto something I couldn't dismiss. One afternoon, I picked up Evan's phone to silence an alarm, and a group chat notification popped up. Bridal crew only. My name wasn't in it. Neither were the wives of other groomsmen. Just Brianna, her bridesmaids, and Evan. I tapped the preview. My eyes skimmed over lines that made my stomach twist. Brianna, she's gonna make a scene about the birthday watch. Maid of honor. Can't believe she's still hung up on that. Kids don't even remember at that age. Evan, don't worry. I'll keep her calm. She gets dramatic, but she'll cool off. I froze, my hand tightening around the phone until my knuckles went white. He wasn't defending me. He was performing damage control for them. The worst part? They were laughing, reacting with emojis, cracking jokes at my expense, as if I were some cartoon villain plotting to ruin their fairy tale. I put the phone down carefully, like it was poison. My pulse thundered in my ears. When Evan came home that evening, I asked, calmly, "Are you part of a bridal chat?" He hesitated. Just a flicker, but it was enough. "They added me to help with planning," he said finally. "It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." My voice was flat. "You're in a group where your sister mocks me, where you call me dramatic." He rubbed his face, exasperated. "You weren't supposed to see that. And yeah, maybe I said that, but you are blowing this way out of proportion." I stared at him, and something in me clicked. It wasn't just his absence at the party. It wasn't just Brianna's arrogance. It was collusion. They were united, not only in ignoring our son, but in undermining me. Later that week, I overheard Brianna at a family dinner, her voice lilting with fake sweetness. "Don't worry, Evan. We'll make sure your wife doesn't steal the spotlight with her birthday balloons." Laughter rippled around the table. I sat there, wine glass in hand, watching them laugh at me in plain sight. No shame, no hesitation. In that moment, I understood it wasn't accidental. It wasn't poor scheduling. It was deliberate. A power play. They wanted to minimize me, to paint me as over-emotional, so whatever I said would sound like hysteria instead of truth. And Evan, my husband, was helping them do it. I smiled at the table, cold and polite. But inside, the decision was already made. This wasn't about drama anymore. It was about strategy. This went so much deeper than I thought. I didn't scream. I didn't slam doors. That would have been too easy for them. Confirmation that I was the dramatic wife they wanted to paint me as. Instead, I went quiet. Cold quiet. The kind that makes people nervous, because silence means calculation. I sat at the kitchen table after everyone had gone to bed, staring at two piles, dinosaur napkins and the cream wedding invitation. Two pieces of paper, same weight, but one carried love and the other contempt. My fingers traced the edges, and for the first time in weeks, I felt steady. There were options. I could beg. I could guilt trip. I could fight Evan until my throat bled and maybe get a few crumbs of attention for our son. But that would be exactly what they wanted. Me performing the role of the unreasonable wife while they rolled their eyes. Or I could flip the script. I started making a mental inventory. Allies, our son's godparents, loyal friends, neighbors who adored him. Proof? The group chat screenshots, the comment about birthdays not matching, the videos of my son asking why daddy wasn't home. Tools, my calm voice, my timing, and an audience. I realized I didn't need to fight Brianna on her turf. I didn't need to argue with Evan in private, where he could twist my words into overreacting. I needed them to show their hand in front of everyone else, and then I'd reveal mine. This wasn't about changing Evan's mind anymore. That ship had sailed the moment he laughed about me getting over it to his sister. This was about making sure everyone saw the truth without me raising a single decibel. I leaned back in the chair, exhaled slowly, and felt a strange calm settle in. Like loading an arrow, not shooting it yet, just knowing it's there. I didn't hesitate anymore. It wasn't about if. It was only about how. And I already had the answer. The morning of my son's birthday, the house smelled like sugar and balloons squeaked against the ceiling. I'd blown them up myself, one by one, until my cheeks ached. The dinosaur cake was crooked but bright, with too many candles waiting to be lit. Evan was already gone. He'd left early, suit bag slung over his shoulder, muttering something about responsibilities. He kissed the air near my cheek and walked out without looking back. I didn't waste energy chasing him. Not anymore. Instead, I focused on my son. When he ran into the kitchen and saw the decorations, his eyes lit up, the way only a child's can. Pure, unfiltered joy. "Is Daddy coming soon?" he asked, the question puncturing me like a needle. I smiled and bent down to tie the string of a balloon to his wrist. "We'll see," I said, my voice calm, steady. "But no matter what, today is your day." Guests started to arrive. His classmates, neighbors, my close friends, his godparents. Laughter filled the backyard as kids chased each other with foam swords. Music played, soda cans cracked open, and I took pictures of my son beaming in his little paper crown. But I also documented something else. Every time he glanced at the gate, waiting. Every time he asked, softly, "Do you think he'll come now?" I filmed those moments, not to wallow, but to keep receipts. Proof of what was missing. At one point, I caught my friend Sarah watching me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "I'm fine." And I meant it. Because beneath the ache, a plan was tightening into place. When it was time for cake, I lit the candles. My son squinted, made a wish, and blew them out while everyone cheered. I caught it all on video, his glowing face framed by balloons and laughter, his eyes darting one last time toward the empty driveway. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed. A photo popped up in the family group chat. Evan and Brianna, arm in arm, grinning at the altar. 100 heart emojis followed. I didn't comment. I didn't reply. I just saved the photo into a folder I'd already named Perspective. As the party wound down, kids left sticky-fingered and happy. My son clutched his new toys and leaned against me, tired but smiling. He whispered, "Best birthday ever." My chest tightened, because even in his joy, he was still waiting. I tucked him into bed, kissed his forehead, and whispered back, "Next year will be even better." Downstairs, I poured myself a glass of water and scrolled through the day's photos and videos. The birthday was proof of what mattered. The empty space beside my son, proof of what didn't. Let Evan think I was sulking, licking my wounds. Let Brianna laugh in her dress. They thought they'd scripted the story, dramatic wife versus dutiful husband. What they didn't know was that I'd just set the stage. I thought it was over. I couldn't have been more wrong. The night after the wedding, the house was silent except for the hum of the fridge. My phone buzzed on the counter. Evan's name lit up the screen. I let it ring twice before answering. His voice was casual, almost smug. "Hey, I know you're upset, but listen, the wedding went great. Everyone loved it. Bree was radiant. We'll celebrate our son tomorrow, okay? Just keep it simple. Cupcakes, maybe a pizza night. He won't even notice the difference. I stared at the darkened window, my reflection looking back at me with a tight smile. Tomorrow. I repeated. Yeah, he said, relieved I wasn't shouting. See? We can work this out. No big deal. No big deal. My son blowing out candles alone while his father posed for pictures wasn't a big deal? The quiet sob I heard when he asked again if Daddy was coming wasn't a big deal? I swallowed the lump in my throat and spoke evenly. We'll talk tomorrow. In front of everyone. There was a pause. Everyone? What do you mean? I mean your family. The ones who keep calling me dramatic. If we're going to clear the air, let's do it with witnesses. Evan chuckled nervously. Come on, don't start. Let's just handle this privately. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. No, we'll do it together. All of us. Tomorrow. Another pause. Then, in that dismissive tone I'd come to know too well, he muttered, fine. If that's what it takes to calm you down. He hung up, probably convinced he'd smooth things over, that my anger was just smoke he could wave away. But as I set the phone down, I felt only clarity. The calm didn't last long. The next afternoon, the living room felt more like a courtroom than a family gathering. Chairs were pulled into a lopsided circle, coffee mugs lined the table, and every relative worth impressing had shown up. Evan sat beside Brianna, both of them smiling too brightly, rehearsed and polished like co-defendants waiting to give their testimony. I stayed standing, leaning against the wall, arms crossed. The air was thick with tension. Even my son, who usually bounded around like a puppy, sat quietly on the couch, clutching his new toy car like it was a shield. Evan cleared his throat first, all false authority. So, I thought it'd be good to talk this out. Apparently, there's been some misunderstandings. Brianna jumped in, her voice honey-sweet. We love you, really. But honestly, you've made this whole birthday thing so much bigger than it needed to be. She let out a light laugh, the kind that invited others to join. A few cousins chuckled uncomfortably, more out of reflex than agreement. I tilted my head, silent. Let them play their opening act. Evan went on, gesturing with his hands like a peacemaker. Look, I had to be at the wedding. That doesn't mean I don't care about my son. It's just, priorities had to shift for one day. You know how dramatic she can get, he added, glancing toward me. There it was. The word again. Dramatic. Their favorite weapon. I let the word hang in the air. Let it sour on their tongues. Then, calmly, I walked over to the TV, plugged in my phone, and pulled up a video. On the screen, the room filled with the sound of my son's voice, high and hopeful. Do you think Daddy will come now? The video showed him glancing toward the gate, holding onto a balloon string, eyes bright with expectation. Then, a pause. A sigh. Maybe he doesn't want to. The room went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. I didn't say a word. I just pressed play on the next clip, him blowing out candles, guests cheering, his small eyes flicking once more toward the driveway. Waiting. Always waiting. Gasps rippled. My mother-in-law shifted uncomfortably, her coffee cup rattling against its saucer. An uncle cleared his throat, but didn't speak. Evan's face flushed red. Why would you film that? You're exploiting him just to make me look bad. I turned, cold and precise. I didn't make you look bad. You did that all by yourself. Brianna scoffed, arms crossed. Oh, come on. Every kid has a birthday. Every man has to be there for his sister's wedding. You're acting like you've been wronged, when really you're just jealous I got the spotlight for once. Jealous? I repeated, my voice low, controlled. No, I'm not jealous. I'm disgusted. At the fact that you could openly laugh about a child's birthday not matching. At the fact that my husband joined in. I pulled up a screenshot, enlarged for everyone to see. The group chat message where Brianna wrote, "Hopefully Evan's little one won't be jealous. It's not like anyone remembers their 7th birthday anyway." And below it, Evan's reply, "Don't worry. I'll keep her calm. She gets dramatic, but she'll cool off." The silence was deafening. Relatives shifted in their seats, eyes darting from Evan to Brianna, then back to me. Brianna's smile cracked. That was a joke. No, I said, my tone slicing through the room. It was a rehearsal. A way to brand me before I even spoke. A way to discredit me, so no matter what I said, it would sound like hysteria. That's not a joke. That's collusion. Evan stood suddenly, fists clenching at his sides. Enough. You're humiliating me in front of my family. I raised one eyebrow. Correction. You humiliated yourself. I'm just showing the evidence. The living room erupted into whispers, aunts shaking their heads, cousins staring at the floor. Some looked at me with sympathy, others at Evan with disappointment. For the first time, I saw panic flicker across Brianna's face. The performance was unraveling, thread by thread. And as I stood there, calm and unshaken, I realized I had shifted the stage completely. What happened next made me question everything I thought I knew. The silence didn't last. It never does. Evan broke first, his voice rising sharp and jagged. You set me up. He jabbed a finger toward me like he was pointing at a criminal. You planned this whole thing just to humiliate me in front of everyone. You don't care about family. You just want to play the victim. Brianna latched onto his words like a lifeline. Exactly. You've been jealous since day one. Always acting like you're above us. Well, guess what? You're not the main character here. This was my wedding, my moment, and you just couldn't stand it. I stayed seated, calm, my hands folded neatly in my lap, though my pulse hammered against my ribs. Around us, the family divided into visible camps. A few nodded along with Evan and Brianna, eager to keep the peace at any cost. Others whispered to each other, brows furrowed, unsettled by the screenshots they'd just seen. My mother-in-law finally spoke, voice trembling with both anger and embarrassment. Couldn't you have kept this private? Did you have to bring the whole family into your drama? There it was again. Drama. They hurled it like rotten fruit, hoping it would stick. Hoping the label would erase the evidence glowing on the TV screen behind me. I scanned their faces one by one. Some glares, some pity, some avoidance. Evan stood above me, fists clenched, his face crimson. You're destroying this family, he spat. Congratulations. Is that what you wanted? To tear us apart? My son stirred on the couch, his little hand gripping the toy car tighter. His eyes flicked between us, wide and uncertain. That image seared into me like fire. He was watching, absorbing every word, every gesture. I felt my stomach twist, not from doubt, but from anger so cold it turned crystalline. They thought this was my breaking point, that I would crumble under the pressure, backpedal, apologize for making a scene, that I would trade my truth for their comfort. Instead, I inhaled slowly, let the breath steady me, and spoke in a voice that cut through the chaos. You keep calling it drama. But the only drama here is a father choosing sequins over his son and a sister who thinks birthdays don't matter. That's not a performance. That's reality. Evan's face contorted, rage and panic mixing like oil on water. Brianna's smile cracked into something feral. The family buzzed with whispers, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. They thought they had me cornered. Outnumbered, isolated, branded as the villain in their script. What they didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that I hadn't even shown my final card. They thought I was finished, but they never realized I had been saving the real ending for them. I didn't rush. I never do. The room was still buzzing with uncomfortable whispers, everyone frozen in the tension of the last scene. My son leaned against the couch cushions, still clutching his toy car, unaware that he was about to witness a lesson in boundaries and respect. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the folder I had labeled Perspective. Screenshots, videos, and messages, every piece of evidence meticulously saved, cataloged, ready to expose the truth. I tapped the first file onto the TV screen for all to see. There it was, the group chat. Brianna's message, unfiltered. Hopefully Evan's little one won't be jealous. It's not like anyone remembers their 7th birthday anyway. The room went silent. I could hear a distant clock ticking, my own heartbeat loud in my ears. I didn't need to say anything. Let the silence speak. Then I swiped to the next screenshot. Evan's response. Don't worry. I'll keep her calm. She gets dramatic, but she'll cool off. Brianna's face drained of color. Evan's jaw tightened, the flush of anger and shame mixing in his expression. I finally spoke, each word deliberate, cold, and precise. You call me dramatic. You brand me hysterical. You both plotted behind my back to make me look unreasonable, to gaslight me, to make my son's birthday seem trivial. Let's be clear, this wasn't a mistake. This was collusion. And here is your proof. Gasps erupted. Relatives leaned forward, whispered amongst themselves. Even some who had sided with Evan and Brianna looked like they were reconsidering. I pressed play on a video clip. My son, bright-eyed, asking for his father. The tiny pause, the hopeful glance toward the driveway. The birthday cake, untouched at the moment he had been expecting Evan. The cheer from friends, contrasting sharply with the absence of his dad. No one spoke. Not even Brianna. Not even Evan. I let the clip end. My son's small voice echoed in the room, lingering like a verdict. I continued, calm, controlled. You thought drama was loud words, shouting, or anger. Drama isn't that. Drama is showing up for the people who matter. Drama is neglecting the ones who depend on you while pretending it's all fine. Drama is thinking you can manipulate reality with smiles and emojis. You were wrong. Evan opened his mouth. I waited. Nothing coherent came out. He knew. Brianna tried to step forward. I didn't flinch. Don't. You've said enough. My mother-in-law's lips parted. This, I cut her off gently, but firmly. This is a lesson in respect. My son's birthday was not negotiable. My love for him is not something to manipulate. And your opinions about me, about what's dramatic, don't matter here. Some relatives murmured in agreement. A few nodded. Evan's face turned a shade of crimson I hadn't seen before. Brianna's fake confidence had evaporated. I looked at my son. He smiled faintly, understanding nothing yet sensing everything. I bent down and whispered, he won't forget this. And neither will you. Evan finally slumped into a chair, defeated. Brianna's shoulders drooped. For the first time, they saw me not as someone overreacting, but as a force that cannot be dismissed. The final swipe on my phone was the small, crooked dinosaur cake photo, him blowing out the candles, pure joy undiluted by absence. That image, too, was part of the evidence, part of the narrative they tried to control. I folded my hands, leaned back, and let the room absorb the reality. No yelling, no theatrics, just truth laid bare. They had misjudged me. They had underestimated what I could do with calm, patience, and evidence. For the first time, the balance of power had shifted. I had closure. I had control. And most importantly, my son had his day.